Good evening, Daytona Beach. Welcome to the January 18th, 2023 meeting of your Daytona Beach City Commission. We're beyond delighted to have each of you with us tonight. At this time, we ask that our Madam Clerk please read a roll call.
Commissioner Reed? Here. Commissioner Harris? Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Commissioner May?
Here.
Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Commissioner Henry? Here. Mayor Derek L. Henry?
Here. We'll now have the invocation led by Commissioner Henry, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Reed. Please rise for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for allowing us to see another year in 2023. We ask and pray, Heavenly Father, that you guide us, lead us all 2023, that we will be informed, that we will listen to our constituents, that we will make good decisions on their behalf. We ask and pray, Heavenly Father, that you bless each and every one of us here and afar. In your Son, Jesus' name, this is the prayer I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move on to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes of the December 7th, 2022 City Commission meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do you have any questions or comments? All those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. At this time, we will have move on to agenda item number 5. Is our agenda approval. If there are any changes, our city manager will read them.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, we do have some changes. Item 8P, Bike Week sponsorship funds. Commissioner Strickland would like to donate $500 to the Beachside Neighborhood Watch for the barbecue event that will serve the police officers during Bike Week. Item 8Q, Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund distribution. Remove Baldy Athletics donation of $2,500 from Commissioner Henry's funds, and he will be submitting those back once all of the paperwork is accurate. And add $1,000 donation to First Step Shelter from Commissioner Strickland. Remove item 10A, Second Amendment to Memorial Health Systems, Inc., PD, Plan Development General, rezoning. Add item 10E, Definition of Family, Land Development Code, LDC Text Amendment. Thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda with the said changes.
We have a motion and we have a second. Commissioner Henry is the second. Commissioner Reed is the motion. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is our presentation, and we're going to go a little bit out of order. We have with us Volusia County Supervisor of Elections, Lisa Lewis, that is going to present certificates to the elected.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for an opportunity just to let me speak for a few minutes and congratulate those that were re-elected and newly elected. This past election was one for the books, but I am happy with how it turned out, and I thank each of you candidates and your supporters for making that happen. So I just wanted to present this, plus I'm here to see the redistricting.
That would be Commissioner Harris, correct, and Commissioner May on the re-election, and Commissioner Henry on the re-election. Okay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, ladies.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 6A, which is the Growth Management and Planning Department, Daytona Beach redistricting. Okay.
All righty then. You're going to start it up?
And just for the record, this is, tonight we're not voting on an action. This is a presentation. Some individuals were under the impression that this will be a vote tonight.
Mr. Mayor, City Commission, Al Hill, representing WGI, who was contracted with to do your redistricting initiative. Can we start the slide deck, please? Oh, it's not here. Okay. I've got it. Too much technology, not enough time. And the clicker is not working. Aha. Oh, the front one doesn't work. It should work. All right. So we are a nationwide firm. We do have a fairly good-sized GIS group. It's not just me working in Orlando. Wanted to cover a little bit of what we talked about a year ago in our January 5th presentation to you. And for anyone in the audience who's unfamiliar with redistricting, it's a process wherein elected governments have to redistrict for any elected official so that the populations in each district are roughly equal. There are some constraints. Your city commission or your city ordinances say that you have to do it. And anytime you annex any property, the adjacent property is brought into the new commission district. The U.S. Census Bureau released their census data in August of 2021. We looked at the Daytona Beach statistics at that point. Your population increased roughly 20% from 2010 to 2020. The official census population number for the city at that point was 72,647 people. But I will show you that that number was a little elevated. Our estimation is more like 71,559, and you'll see why. Each district's ideal population, given that number, would be roughly 12,000 people. So the census data is a very large table of population totals and ethnicities based on the census geography. And that census geography is broken up into 3 levels. Census tracts, which are the largest census data collection area, census block groups, and finally census blocks. You can consider that a census block is roughly a city block, sometimes much larger, very rarely smaller. So given the census geography population totals and the existing commission district boundaries, the numbers that you see on your screen for each zone are not exactly that equal population breakdown. With Zone 4, for instance, current Zone 4, having roughly 16,500 people. So there are some special considerations that we had to take into account. Current elected officials must remain in their zone. You can't be redistricted out of your area. Balanced populations per zone. The zones should be compact and contiguous, which is a challenge because some of your municipal boundaries are not contiguous. Keep as intact as possible large concentrations of minority populations. The zone boundaries should be nonpartisan and respect communities of interest where it's possible. And communities of interest that were identified were things like the colleges and universities, campuses, and community redevelopment areas, as well as major subdivisions. So we did look at ethnic population distributions, both Black and Hispanic, to be cognizant of where those areas are when we were working on district boundaries. So there were some important policy decisions that we were given at the January 5th meeting last year. Create districts with a population approximately plus or minus 1% of the ideal population. However, we could intentionally underpopulate some districts based on expected population growth. And we were told to identify what those population growth areas were. Preserve the core of existing districts to minimize potential voter confusion. To the extent possible, keep communities of interest together and to submit 2 draft proposals to the city for review in late '22 or early '23. So we did generate a web-based survey that was made available to citizens on the municipal website that gave citizens the ability to voice their concerns about the redistricting process, to identify communities of interest they felt should be kept together, and to voice any other concerns that they had over the methodology of the process. We also had a map or a story map up on the city's website to discuss the redistricting process. The metrics for that were actually very popular. The survey, we only had 17 respondents to, but the story map regarding redistricting had several hundred people that reviewed it. We also have available a web-based survey that can be used to identify citizen support for a particular plan if the city would like to make that available on the municipal website. So, things to consider. Detailed review of the 2020 census data was the first thing we needed to do. Again, that ideal population of roughly 12,000 people. Planned growth areas and public participation, which is why we put that survey up in the first place. So, detailed census review turned up a couple of interesting things. First of all, census geography, that census block, the smallest area of census collection, is not always coincidental with the municipal boundary, which meant that some census blocks that were identified as belonging to the city were in fact not in the city. When we looked at aerial photography and looked for residential structures, the residential structures were in the unincorporated county, for instance. We also identified one census block that had 1,159 people in it. When you look at that census block against aerial photography, it's all trees. So they misidentified the population of the adjacent jail as being in that census block. So that dropped the population total from what the census is still showing, I should say, for the city, by 1,159 people. We have brought that error to the Census Bureau's attention, but they have not made the change. We also looked at municipal growth, as you're all well aware. Most of your municipal growth, with the exception of a couple of apartment complexes, is west of I-4 or west of 95. We compared property appraisal data and E911 address data for 2020, April 2020, when the census was done, to last month, and identified identified 483 new occupied single-family residences in this group of 35 census blocks that are identified on the map that you see. Even more dramatic is the anticipated growth in the future in this area, because we identified, using property appraisal data and 911 address data, that there are 1,500 parcels identified as vacant residential, either under construction or planned in this area since April of 2020. Those 483 occupied residences would, given the different planning models, be roughly equal to 800 to 1,000 people. So, using community of interest information, population growth information, some of the feedback that we got from citizens, we came up with 2 draft plans that are available for your review. They're compact and contiguous. We took communities of interest and ethnic population distributions into consideration, and they have appropriately balanced populations given the growth model and where growth is going to be over the next few years. One thing that we felt was quite important, we heard from several different people about, is keeping CRAs together. So Plan A tried to take that into account. There are 2 CRAs that are not single zone CRAs. West Side or Midtown CRA is split into 2, and that's based on where commissioners live or census geography. And then the South Atlantic redevelopment area, unfortunately, is in 3 zones, and again, that's driven entirely by census geography. That blocks are not contiguous with planning areas. In draft Plan B, again, they're compact and contiguous. We tried to follow major roads, make life easier. Populations are roughly balanced. In this case, 4 is underpopulated based on the numbers from the census, based on that anticipated growth. And for CRA distribution for Plan B, again, Midtown, unfortunately, is split, in this case, into 3. There's a small portion along the northern boundary of Midtown that's in Zone 2. Again, this is driven by census geography, unfortunately. And the South Atlantic redevelopment area, again, is divided into 3 zones, again, driven by census geography. We do have an interactive map available that we can provide. Actually, we have provided it to the city that can be put up on your website if people would like to look at a detailed zone-by-zone boundary at the street level, as well as a story map that gives the population numbers and the growth estimates. And we can, again, put a web-based survey up if you're interested in citizen input on either of these plans. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments. Okay.
Excuse me. Does anyone have any questions? Ooh.
Okay. Well, that was easy. All right, well, thank you very much.
How long are you in town?
Pardon me? How long have I, how long am I in town?
You're leaving today?
I don't have to. I am more than willing to stay. I love Daytona Beach. I come here often.
You like coming?
The band shell is great.
What's tomorrow?
Thursday. And I can be here, be available for you if you need tomorrow.
I suppose we might be able to do it over Zoom. Yeah. Can you, I'll call you.
Okay.
I'd like to have a meeting,
All right.
personal meeting after this, so, okay. Anyone else have any questions? Who is the staff liaison?
Doug Gutierrez. Oh, I should point out, I should have mentioned this when I was talking about communities of interest. One thing we did take into account, serious account, were college and university campuses. All of Bethune-Cookman College, their campus is in Zone 3, not split like it was previously, and all of Embry-Riddle, including their dorms, and Daytona State College, including their new dorm, is in Zone 6.
And is that the case for, you say all of Zone 3, is that the case for both maps?
Yes, that is correct, for both Plan A and Plan B.
Well, you know, there was a historic, and that was one of the questions I would have. There was a history behind why they divided the campus. So that's a discussion that we would need to have if that's really what we want. Is there an option yet still to keep it divided?
If I am so directed to come up with new boundaries, that can be done.
How
I was
difficult?
under the
Yeah.
impression from the supervisor of elections that she wanted to
You
keep
don't want that?
as a,
Could we have the history behind it? Because I don't know that history of being divided.
Well, it was divided, there was a decision made somewhere in the past. Yeah,
Somewhere in Daytona.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, for voting,
No.
it is best if every college is in one zone. Because when you have, especially with Bethune-Cookman, when it's divided and those students come in to vote and they don't know their dorm address, and that dorm address is in this zone, but they may live in the other one, or they're not sure, so they use the president's address, 640 Dr. Martin
it
Luther,
don't work.
or Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, then everybody goes into a different zone than what they're actually supposed to be in, because they don't know their actual address, and each year they change dorms.
Okay,
And they just don't know the physical address of those dorms, and those physical dorms are in 2 different districts. And so that does.
Does make, that makes a
yes,
big difference.
Yes.
Makes a big difference. They themselves had a history of appreciating the separation as it related to their ability to influence more than one zone. And that is important, that has been important to them. And that makes sense, because they get more influence if they have 2 commissioners representing the campus. And that's a part of the history of how that transpired. So your point is duly noted and will take high precedence in my personal deliberations, as I'm sure, with the commission. But I want to be, as I try to be with all of these issues, this is going to be deep dive for me. Deep dive, deep conversation on every issue. So, and also something that I want public insight about. So we have to decide, begin these discussions now, putting things out so people know what the real questions are. Because this is something that you can easily just slide through and people don't pay attention to. But to the degree that we say it's important, people will respond and give us the information that we want. And that's just the way I've tried to do things, you know, of late. So we want public participation. Okay. Anything else?
No, I just wanted to, that was a wish for our office, but let me tell you, whatever you decide is what we do.
No,
Don't
but
ever think
your
that
wish
I'm-
is, you are the best supervisor of elections in the state of Florida. Supervisor, you're the best. Okay, you are known and respected by this community. So what you say is going to take high priority as well.
Thank
Okay,
you.
for me.
I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you very much.
With regard to the map, sir, so in Zone 3, does Zone 3 lose a percentage of the beach side but gain a percentage on the west side?
Yes.
So in Plan,
The beach, all of the beachside districts needed to move west to
they did.
gain population. That was the only direction I could go. Though there was one citizen input that said we should make the beachside, the entire beachside,
Its
2
own.
districts.
It shouldn't be 3
But we
districts, but
can't
yes.
do that without redistricting somebody out of their district. We had to take into account that the census block that you live in had to be locked to you.
okay.
That was actually our starting point for anything that we did.
So I want to be clear in my understanding. So Zone 3 would lose a percentage of beachside and become a bit smaller, right, in one scenario, but they would pick up a larger piece all the way across Nova. Does that include Campbell?
I'm sorry, does
Would that include Campbell Middle School crossing Nova?
I
It's okay, don't worry. It does.
believe so.
It does, okay, cool. All right,
I can confirm that.
okay. And would it also pick up the university if they kept it the same? If
Yes.
part of the university
It-
include
It
Campbell?
has all of Bethune Beach.
Okay,
And all of the buildings are identified in the property appraisal data that I could identify as being Bethune Beach.
okay, thank you.
And my question,
Bethune-Cookman.
It's the beach, that's what it's called, the Bethune Beach, is what you say?
Oh,
Bethune-Cookman?
The
Bethune
community of
Beach is
Bethune
another
Beach?
parcel. It's Bethune-Cookman.
oh, okay, yes, yes,
Zone 3 picks up the university?
yes,
If it stays together?
yes.
Okay,
If it stays this map.
yeah, all right.
my preference, if we had to pick now from A to B, would be B. I know I'm the only commissioner that will be losing residents instead of gaining anyone. And so Plan B, I would have pretty much the west side of 95. I would lose Pine Lake subdivision on Clyde Morris. I would keep Georgetown, Yorktown.
Yes.
I would lose Indigo.
Yes,
And I would lose everything on the east side of 95.
yes, but
And I would also lose the Speedway and Amazon coming in. And the 3,200 homes that are being built in Avalon, that would still be in my zone.
yes, correct. You-
Okay, and that's
ultimately,
why
in Plan B, ultimately.
there's only
with-
10,000
with
residents.
Zone 4, you're going to gain,
Correct,
A
because
lot
there
of
is a
people.
lot of building that has been approved a while back that you're just now seeing.
right, correct.
Correct, okay.
So you would choose which one?
I would choose Plan B because I would keep everything from the west side of 95, and that would include LPGA, Bayberry, Margaritaville, Avalon when they come in, and Pelican Bay, of course, because that's where I live, and I would still have Yorktown and Georgetown.
Which was in my own little brain when I first got here, kind of how I anticipated
Right.
you would shape out that way, in the
And
way that this.
Indigo and the Speedway, and that would go to Commissioner Reed, and then Danette,
No, in B? No, the Speedway and the airport are in Zone 6.
Yeah.
that's
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Reed.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Danette would get everything on the east side of 95 off LPGA, correct? And then Paris would pick up Pine Lakes on Clyde Morrison Bevel, and the public shopping center, and, well, and then that property is county property, except for Amazon. And I think I would still keep the dog track as well, and the Karis project.
I'm not sure where the dog track is.
That is across from Amazon off
Oh.
Williamson, so it's,
We had provided to the city, to the project manager, detailed boundary sheets for each zone, showing the current boundaries and the proposed new boundaries for each plan. I hope you all got that.
yes, we did. And if we could call Dennis up here, could I call you up to make sure I was correct on that?
Thank you, Dennis Merzak, Planning Director.
I was discussing Plan B.
Yeah.
And was I correct on everything
Yeah, you were correct. You were talking about the dog track and the new Karis project.
project?
Yeah,
right.
and the project, yeah, that's all in, still remains in your district.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Joel, regardless of which plan we choose, once we choose the plan, it goes into effect right away, or is it just specifically for the next election? How does that work?
Mr. Attorney?
It goes into effect upon adoption of the ordinance. So the process here is through ordinance adoption by 3/5 vote. So that's the answer on the effective date of your ordinance.
So if our zones are changing, we would be able to kind of start to understand the needs of the expanded zone and be able to move in those directions right away. Okay.
Yes, once a plan is chosen, then we would generate a legal description that you could use as an attachment to your ordinance. We'll generate what's referred to as a machine-readable legal description with census geography numbers so that anyone with the appropriate software can generate that boundary automatically, and we'll provide that to the Supervisor of Elections office as well.
Okay. Dr. Butler, since you're here, if you could ask if you have any student, SGA or staff person that has any opinion as it relates to the university, to contact my office, because I would like to know what they think. Okay, thank you. No.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Excuse me, I have a
Unless there's something
question.
else. Oh, I'm sorry.
This web-based survey, can we see what they commented, the
Oh,
residents?
certainly. Yes, I did provide a copy of that to the city's project manager as recently as last week.
Okay.
But yes, I'd be happy to make that available.
Thank you.
There were a couple of comments that weren't very polite. I will point that out. But
Hey, it's political discourse in the United States. It's okay.
Also, commissioners, if you want the office to set up Zoom meetings, if you just contact Mr. Morris's office, they'll be more than happy to set up individual Zoom meetings with the consultant.
And our staff person who's going to meet with us, and I'd like to meet with our Dennis? Okay. And, okay, okay. First, I want to meet with the staff person, and then I'll get a meeting with you. Okay.
all right, very good.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, any other questions or comments? Very well, very well. I appreciate your efforts, and we look forward to going through the process.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 6B, which is a Public Works Monthly Beautification Award presentation. A member of the Beautification Tree Advisory Board to present.
Come on up, Michelle. Mayor Henry, members of the City Commission, and Mr. Feature. My name is Robert Ettinger. I'm at 125 Azure Mist Way. I'm the Zone 4 member on the Beautification Tree Advisory Board. And this month, we have selected Michelle Stewart from 167 Azure Court as the Residential Beautification Award winner for the month of January 2023. Unfortunately, these pictures should have been taken about 2 weeks earlier, and they would have been just absolutely gorgeous. Michelle has been a resident of Daytona Beach and has resided at this address for a year and a half. The property is nestled up on a lake with preserves behind it. Michelle has a landscaping company mow the grass, but takes pride in personally taking care of the plants. Many of the plants have recently been impacted by the frost in the backyard, but are showing new growth. The types of trees, shrubs, and plants used for beautification include palmetto palm, Bismarck palm, fan palms, coconut palm, robolini palms, date palm, agave plants, saw palmetto, primrose ground coverage, desert ruelia, white and orange bird of paradise, yellow snapdragons, yellow roses, cactus, pink diplodenia, and several various flowers. City Commissioner Stacy Cantu, Zone 4, is going to present the award.
On behalf of myself and the City Commission, I'd like to present this award to you and thank you for your effort and determination in keeping our city beautiful.
Thank you.
That we all can be proud of. Your contribution is greatly appreciated by the Daytona Beach residents who live here and work here. Thank you.
We're going to.
It's for you too. Now, is anybody here from Intracoastal Bank? Oh, great. Come on. Come on up. Mayor Henry, members of the City Commission, and Mr. Feature, the Beautification Tree Advisory Board has selected Intracoastal Bank at 2140 LPGA Boulevard as the Commercial Beautification Award winner for the month of January 2023. Intercoastal Bank has been in the Daytona Beach area for 13 years and is managed by Barbara Griffiths. The bank is owned by Volusia residents who had a vision of establishing a truly local hometown community bank. Their shareholders consist of a diverse group of local business leaders and residents with a goal of supporting the community by building strong and lasting relationships with their clients. The building was built in 2014 by a local general contractor, Bettner Construction, and is maintained by a local landscaping company, Vertigro, LLC. The types of trees, shrubs, and plants used for beautification include golden yew hedge plants, liriope, Hawaiian Thai cordyline, Trinidad schefflera shrubs, bird of paradise, hawthorn trees and bushes, crepe myrtles, mojo, pittosporum, and magnolia trees. This is one of the properties that really impressed me when I was going around looking at them because trees are everywhere. And trees are so important for our climate. So Mayor Henry is going to be presenting the award. Thank you.
Earlier, I criticized South Florida for being a concrete jungle. And we have to be honest, as we travel along LPGA, that's one of our, great fears. But on my trek home, your property is a welcome reprieve. It is true. your trees, your landscape, is boisterous, positive, in a positive way. And we appreciate the effort that you take in maintaining this property. So if you would, this certificate achievement reads, may it be known that this certificate has been presented to Intracoastal Bank for distinguished achievement in commercial beautification. City of Daytona Beach, Florida, signed by myself, Mayor Derek L. Henry, and Zone 4 Commissioner Stacy Cantu.
And then there's one more. There's one more for us.
Thank you.
Hey, Barbara. That's for Barbara.
Barb?
That's also for you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 7. During this time, citizens have the opportunity to address the City Commission on any item on the consent agenda. My first speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is John Nicholson.
Sorry, I didn't expect to be first. Name's Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. Should all have that memorized by now. Unfortunately, there's a great number of items on this that I'd like to speak about with any length of time. However, I got 3 minutes whether there's one item or 50, which is something we probably should address. First, I want to talk about, again, vehicles that we're purchasing, which is items 8A, B, and I. Once again, the city continues to buy diesel vehicles, and I've strongly encouraged that you try and steer away from that, but that doesn't seem to be anywhere on your plans. Again, the diesel industry is being pretty much targeted by the EPA for the large amount of carbon emissions it makes, and therefore the fuel costs continue to get higher and higher. The maintenance costs continue to get higher to higher, and the lifespan of the engines continues to get lower and lower. There was a time when they lasted longer. That time is no more because of the requirements of the environment. I also wanted to talk to you about the donation of the city property. Obviously, I'm in favor of helping out the university, but it's like everything else that we give away. Sometimes we need to think about the consequences down the road. We need to start thinking of the future and not the past. There's more to that area than has been brought up. And the time to take action is when people want something. There's an opportunity to fix the roadway where it junctions into the waste area, and it would help not only the university, but it will also help the city of Daytona Beach. This also is a corridor, if you understand anything about the drainage of the city and the problem areas at the goes all the way down to Pelican Bay, up through the Speedway and the airport. This is a time when we should be writing into our contracts that we have provisions to be able to put that drainage in there. Again, it will help both sides. But if we don't do it, what's going to end up happening will be in endless lines of litigation, which, as we know, is extremely expensive. And then, typical what happens, it takes years to get this straightened out. And again, we have another flood in the city. So there are several things that we should be looking at in an area. It's a very important trend. And like I say, all parties could be winners. On lighting, once again, I'm disappointed that I don't see, and especially with FP&L advertising what a great energy company they are, I see absolutely nothing in there with solar. Again, another opportunity missed. On the filter slide, again, I did a presentation. I sent a copy. I don't know if Commissioner Paris passed it on, but we need to start looking at the predictive maintenance on these things, rather than paying huge bills later.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson.
John Nixon, 413 North Grandview Avenue. Two items, D and J. Again, it's the city giving away property to Embry-Riddle. I have no problem with that. We prime the pump all the time. On the beach side, we've gotten 5 beautiful, tall, fantastic buildings because the city gave away tax dollars, which is increment funding, TIF funds. But my only request here is the property's what, $400,000 or $500,000, this one, and they're going to ask for another one across the street. It benefits them tremendously. It benefits us tremendously. However, I would ask you to ask something in return. Ask them to find some way of mentoring, tutoring our high school, our junior highs, as a gift back to the city. We give a little, they give a little. Secondly, the traffic engineering on J, I'm not quite, whether you all realize it or not, we are the only city in the county that doesn't have the county's traffic system, lighting system. Apparently, from what I understand from the county, we were kind of stingy in years past. We didn't have the funds to have an up-to-date, accurate traffic signal. So we stayed alone because we couldn't afford it. I'm asking you to consider looking at joining all the other cities in the county in a unified traffic system. It would benefit us tremendously because at some point we have to update. We cannot continue to use 1980 technology. It's too many years old. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe Dr. Butler is here in the audience from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
For the opportunity. Just wanted to appreciate the fact that you are considering the property conveyance. With respect to the opportunities for us, our growth in the research park over the last 5 years has added significant vibrancy to this community in terms of high-paying jobs, in terms of growth in our enrollment, significant growth in our enrollment. And as mentioned by the previous speaker, we do actually work a lot with local schools and students. We will continue to focus on that as we move forward as well. I promise you on that. But the ability to expand the research park, we're at capacity right now, and we have some incredible opportunities coming our way. And the ability to expand that park will add a lot of significant growth, I believe, to this community in terms of significantly high-paying jobs and other activities that go with it. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have one additional speaker, Mr. Mayor. It's Ann Ruby.
Hi, Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I think it's great that they're doing programs. It would be interesting. I'd like to know more about them. But what about asking them for a full ride, 4-year scholarship every year for a Daytona Beach resident who graduated from a Volusia County school, so that one student from Daytona Beach would have the opportunity to go to Embry-Riddle? I just think that would be a great give back to the community, because mentoring programs, tutoring programs, those things are great, and they can change lives. But a 4-year scholarship would be really significant. So I think that would be a good ask, and I would hope they'd consider giving it. Maybe they already do, but I would hope they would consider another one if they're not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Deputy City Attorney Gross has a nuance we need to address with the commission. I would ask that your motion reflect this change to the approval for the Embry-Riddle item.
Do you need to raise your question first?
I don't think so, but on 8D, so it's a brownfield property. I think we all know that. So they're taking a gamble and are going to spend a lot of money to clean this
fix
up. Am I correct? They're taking all liability.
Yes.
So actually, it's probably a win-win for the city. So, but, go ahead, Mr. Gross.
Yeah, and I'll come back after that. It's more than a win-win, but go ahead.
Thank you. Ben Gross, Deputy City Attorney. We've been working closely with Embry-Riddle to get the conveyance completed. The item on your consent agenda tonight would authorize the manager to sign all the closing documents and associated agreements that would need to be signed because Embry-Riddle has asked to close prior to the next commission meeting if possible. In the run-up to that transaction, we did discover late in the day that some utility lines are located on the property, and they will either need to be preserved or relocated. We've mentioned this to Embry-Riddle. They've got no problem accommodating us and working with us on that. So we want to make sure that the resolution, when it gets approved, includes authority for the manager at closing to amend the vacant land contract as needed, to enter into additional contracts as needed, and also to accept an easement as a condition of closing in order to provide for the preservation or relocation of these utility lines.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, they're pointing at me. I have to recuse myself from this because Embry-Riddle is my employer. But I'd also like to just make a comment. As a native Daytonian, I have seen Embry-Riddle grow. And anything, and I'm going to say this, anything we bring before this commission is top notch. Have you looked at our university lately? We are the aviation aerospace university of the world. People come from around the world to come to Embry-Riddle. Our name is well known and well respected in the community. And Embry-Riddle helps to put Daytona Beach on the map. Not only do we have our main campus in Daytona, we have a residential campus in Prescott, and we have over 120 campuses around the world on bases as well as satellite campuses in cities. So we are somebody. I can see all this week as I'm recusing myself. But the economic impact that we have, the beautification, look at our buildings. And the buildings that are forthcoming are going to look even better. I can't imagine why we wouldn't vote on this. And I can't imagine why a citizen would think that we wouldn't. I conclude my comments.
Yes. Any other comments? I don't want to belabor the point, and I do respect and understand the sentiment of reciprocity. And to Mr. Nicholson's concern, I was at the table when the Volusia County School Board was in discussion of creating a new STEM high school. And no one was at the table and prepared to engage those students in a deep dive, more so than Embry-Riddle. I know what the plan was. The school did not come to fruition because of change in superintendency and strategy. And I dare not dive into that issue. But I will say that I know firsthand their commitment to this community. And sometimes you don't have to, because a partner in your community does something, you don't always have to say, I need something back right at this moment. Relationships that are long-standing, for me, that's just not how they necessarily work. We know what you bring to the table. And if we didn't get anything, the jobs alone. See, what is missed in this community about 32114 is that the best jobs in Volusia County, not in Daytona Beach, the best jobs in all of Volusia County are in 32114. Now, unfortunately, the people who live in 32114 do not inhabit the majority of those jobs. But Embry-Riddle is a catalyst for those jobs. And this particular program, $50 million is what the building is going to cost. So imagine the value that's going to come out of the building. It's a no-brainer for me, and I'm excited beyond excited about what it's going to mean for the community and the things that you all have planned that can't yet be stated. That's going to blow our socks off. So, no further comment. We have a motion? No?
So this was just a citizen
Oh,
comment.
that's right.
So.
We're done.
we'll
We
move
need
on
the
to
motion.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda motion. That's the last of it.
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Cantu. We have a second from Commissioner Strickland. All those who are for this item, please vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. This motion gloriously passes 7-0. 6-0. Let's get the party started.
That's okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So we're going to move on then to item number 9,
That's a party, man. That be-
which is our public hearings.
Sure don't know how to dance, though.
Let's see here. 9A is a Public Works approval of the preliminary and final plat, Village Plaza. This is a resolution public hearing. A resolution approving the preliminary and final plat for Village Plaza, a commercial subdivision generally located 1104 to 1128 Bevel Road, authorizing the city manager to sign the final plat and to permit recordation thereupon meeting certain conditions precedent and providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Cantu.
I have no speakers for this item, Mr. Mayor.
All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. This motion carries 7-0.
We're going to move on to item 9B. It's Growth Management and Planning Department, Daytona West Community Development District, CDD. This is an ordinance on second reading public hearing. An ordinance granting the petition of Avalon Park, Daytona Landholding LP, for establishment of a community development district, creating and establishing the Daytona West Community Development District, providing for name, powers, and duties, providing description and boundaries, providing additional members of the Board of Supervisors, providing severability, and an effective date.
So move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Cantu and a second from Commissioner May.
And I do have Nika Hausini here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
Do we have any questions? All right, no questions?
And I
Although
have no other speakers, I'm sorry.
no other speakers, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Now move on to item 9C, which is the Growth Management and Planning Department, Wilder Street, Small Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance adopting a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment in accordance with Section 163-3187 Florida statutes in relation to 2.37 plus acres of land, the subject property, generally located along and east of Ridgewood Avenue, north and south of Wilder Boulevard, amending the future land use map designation of portions of the subject property from Level 2 residential, 1.36 plus acres, and office transition, 1.01 plus acres, to retail, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Paris.
I have no speakers for this item, Mr. Mayor.
And we have no speakers. All those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item 9D, it's a Growth Management and Planning Department at Event Centers Land Development Code Text Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the City Land Development Code, LDC, amending LDC Article 5, Section 5.2, to add Event Center as a principal or special use in certain zoning districts, subject to use-specific standards. Amending the LDC Article 11, Section 11.5 definitions in association with the addition of the new use type above, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner Cantu.
I do have a speaker on this item, Mr. Mayor. It's Mr. John Nicholson, and he has passed, so I have no other speakers on this item.
All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, So we're moving on to item number 10, which is our administrative items. Item 10A was pulled from the agenda tonight, so we're going to move on to item 10B, which is the Growth Management and Planning Department, third amendment to the HHMC PD. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance approving the Third Amendment to the HHMC Plan Development Agreement to reconfigure an existing parcel within the development agreement into separate lots, and to provide access for these lots to the public road system. Authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the Third Amendment, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission? Okay. The public hearing and final action will be on February 1st. On to item 10C, which is the Growth Management and Planning Department, Daytona Hyundai Genesis PD. This is a Plan Development General. This is also an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 8.5 plus or minus acres of property located at 650 North Nova Road from PDG Plan Development General to PDG Plan Development General, approving the Daytona Hyundai Genesis Plan District Agreement to allow for redevelopment of the site to include a customer and inventory display parking lot to support the automobile dealerships located on site and to the north of the site, subject to certain conditions. Authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission? Okay. The public hearing and final action is February 1st. Moving on to item 10D, it's the Utilities Department, ordinance amending Chapter 98, City Code of Ordinances. This is also an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending Section 98-31 to include connection fees and Sections 98-250 and 98-252 to define capital facility fees as connection fees, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission?
Nope.
Okay, the public hearing and final action will be February 1st. We're going to move on to item 10E, which was added to our agenda tonight. This is the Growth Management and Planning Department definition of family in the Land Development Code text amendment. This is also an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending the City Land Development Code, LDC, amending LDC Section 11.5, containing definitions by amending the definitions of family and dwelling unit and creating a definition of household, amending LDC Section 5.3.c, providing specific standards for accessory dwelling units, ADUs, by requiring that ADUs shall be occupied by a single household, amending LDC Section 5.5.a, restricting occupancy of dwelling units, repealing the term family with household, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And are there any questions or comments from the commission? Okay. The public hearing and final action is February 1st. And that was our final agenda item.
Okay, at this time, we will hear from our commission members, commencing with Commissioner Reed of Zone 6.
Betty, are we still having the, her eyes open?
I'll respond.
Are we still having the Academy, Citizens Academy?
Yes,
reunion?
Citizens Academy is going on. I think this is their second, they've had their second session.
No, the reunion. Is the reunion still on? She can't hear me.
Betty, are you in the audience?
Yeah, they haven't scheduled the reunion yet. I think that's something they're going to be coordinating.
Oh, it was on my calendar. Okay. There was something else, but I can't think of it, so I'll come back.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Paris?
I just wanted to add to the state of the city, talking about community. In Zone 1, as you know, a lot of people were flooded. And for Thanksgiving, one of the residents actually took the Church of Christ and did a Thanksgiving dinner to cook for the people that couldn't cook in the neighborhood, which I thought was a beautiful thing. Same thing in Carriage Cove. A lot of people flooded out, and they made pre-made meals and went door to door. The thing that I really love about Daytona Beach is the sense of community, that there's people there and they're always willing to help. And sometimes I just thought it was in my area, but as I got to meet more of the people, it is in most of the areas that I've visited, which I think is also great. I've been participating in the Citizens Academy, and all the residents are, they participate in it. We went to see the Peabody this week, and there's a lot of good shows going on there. There's so much history also in Daytona Beach that I hope people get to know about. Elvis Presley was actually there in the Peabody, which I thought was really cool. Then we also have the Mayor's Fitness Challenge. So you have 150 people that have joined, and everyone's just keep encouraging to keep going, keep doing it. And I think that's what we have to do as a city, and that's what's going to move us forward as well. That's really all I had for this week.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Commissioner Strickland.
Go Dogs, baby. You know, if you are a Florida fan or anybody else, it's hard to get to the top. It's really hard to repeat, and getting to the bottom is fast. So we're going to enjoy it while we're there, because we could be at the bottom next year.
Right, baby.
Did you get that, Mr. Cameron? Roll Tide. What a saying.
I love it.
Here we go. Glad everybody's happy when I start. Probably won't be when I'm finished. I want to talk about, the governor was here today, I think, down at Dunlawton, and talking about how much money we're going to have coming here and that sort of thing. What was it, 37 point something million just for Volusia County. And I would like, I appreciate the money, no doubt about it, but I would like to hold off on us making any big decisions. If we have to do a moratorium, let's do one until we get total numbers of flood cost, flood damage cost, till we get some more direction from the state. I think them and the DEP are in charge of setting the rules and the standards for replacing the damaged seawalls, that sort of thing. Or we could end up spending more money when we have another 100-year flood event within the next year, 2 or 3. Because those two storms, they were hurricanes at one time, both of them, but I don't think either one of them were hurricanes very long in Volusia County. We suffered a lot of damage. I can't imagine what we'd be doing right now if we'd had a 2 or up, or even a 1, a full-fledged hurricane, how much damage we would have had. We would be remiss, I think, as a body looking after the tax dollars of this city and the well-being of this city, to start improving stuff east of A1A or in existing floodplains until we know exactly what the damages were, what they cost, and how we're going to go about spending that $37 million prudently to replace our seawalls. I know I'm getting some looks, but that's okay.
Well, I was just wondering what you meant, because it ain't us that's going to get it. So.
Well, no, it's not us.
Yeah.
But for us to approve more stuff in those areas, well, in the floodplain, okay, or along the ocean where the damage happened, because we're the ones that decide what goes along that ocean, not the county, not the state.
That's correct.
And so, I think we need to think about that long and hard. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of damage, and they were not hurricanes; they were tropical storms. Named at one time, but I don't think they were hurricanes when they reached here. I know I still have some people that are having difficulty with the damages that they suffered during the I almost said it, the tropical storms, and these are people in the floodplain over near the old Lopez property. They have a hard time over there every time we have some flooding. And for us to continue to do what we've been doing for the last 30 years is talk a lot about it when it happens. Then the talk dies down and we never really have done anything. So I would like to see us be real careful going forward about what we do and it not be, well, it's over with, nobody's talking about it now. We need to keep that right in the forefront and be careful about the decisions we make. I know I'd also, we're doing redistricting and talking about, which affects our elections and stuff. I just would like for us sitting up here, all of us, have another election in 2 years. I'd like for us to not get caught up with posturing for the next election and continue to keep our residents and our small businesses first priority.
Amen.
And that's it for me.
Agree with you on that. Agree with you. Yep.
So with regard to the small businesses in Zone 3, I've been having conversation with the city manager as well as with the redevelopment person as well as with businesses downtown, merchants downtown. We're still concerned, the merchants are still concerned with flooding. It's not just during a storm or hurricane situation. Sometimes it's a heavy rain and Orange Avenue goes crazy, so does Palmetto. So at the next CRA meeting, we have some concepts we want to bring forward to discuss. Possibly we can use CRA funds to deal with it. Some ideas that actually worked in more than one business in the downtown area, which truly surprised me when I saw the pictures that they showed me, more than SMA. But I think it's something that residents could also potentially utilize, especially if there's CRA funds or they're within the CRAs. I think it could be beneficial to them also. So that's something I'll be bringing forth, hopefully, at the next CRA meeting that we have, right? And that's about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Cantu?
Yes. I'm sorry I missed you, Commissioner Strickland, when the governor came to town. You should have came up and said hi. Oh, sorry. Okay, I keep hearing about the moratorium on Beachside. And I know I've been up here for 2 years now, well, actually going on my third year, and I've only approved one development on A1A since I've been here. And I would just like to call up maybe Jim Morris, Deputy City Jim Morris, if you could tell me how many properties have been approved maybe in the last 15, 20 years.
Mayor Commissioner Jim Morris, Deputy City Manager. In answer to Commissioner Cantu's question, there are 3 new projects that have occurred in approximately the last 14 years. A number of sites were cleared as a result of a real estate boom and not redeveloped. That took out old construction. We have a 4th site under construction, Silver Hills, which is a residential apartment complex north of Seabreeze. And we have probably 4 or 5 redevelopment projects going on, some of that are major hotels, some that are smaller, that are being redone that were decrepit. And those were built to older standards. Any new construction that occurs will be done consistent with DEP and state standards, seaward of the coastal control line, and the county and the state, Mayor, you are correct, are the entities that control the beach front in terms of seawalls and control of the ocean beach. DEP standards apply seaward, rather landward of the line, almost to A1A, so the foundations and so on are built to those standards. And just by an example, the Proto Group Hotel at Seabreeze, which is roughly 29 stories high, has a foundation that goes roughly 100 feet below grade and is virtually a solid concrete pad coming up. And from a structural perspective, they suffered no significant damage in the course of the last storm, and that was new and modern construction.
Okay, so.
Do you remember what those are?
The new ones?
The ones that
Yes,
you
sir.
named.
The 2 restaurants that are there south of Silver Beach? Yes, sir. And then Silver Hills is just north of Seabreeze. And the third one, Dennis, I'm drawing a blanks. The 2 restaurants?
Land Shark and
Proto Group. Proto Group would be the other one.
Proto Group.
Land Shark and the 2 restaurants, Proto Group, and then Silver Hills, which is further north.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking that question
Mayor, I'm
because I approved all 3 of those. To great community fanfare, I might add. You're talking about a beachside that hadn't had a new restaurant built on it in 50 years. And so how quickly we forget. And Proto Group, when I voted on that, Commissioner Reed was here. Yeah, when we voted on that, this community was craving and just almost craving to the nation, please see me. We were like a little flower, just withering away, wishing that someone would see our beauty and see our potential. Yeah, well, it's a withering away. The only city on the eastern seaboard that had had negative growth for a number of years. And you go down and you look at our beach and you look at our community and you say, why would we have negative growth? You know, and so when you, it's natural a reaction would transpire when you have a hurricane, and I believe it's reasonable to have a discussion about all things. But I don't ever want us to overreact about what we've done, you know, and then if we want to react to what's to come in the future, then we react because people are afraid. And they, you know, if I lost something, I'd be afraid also. But we have to remember also our beach front and all throughout the community, new construction is better than construction from 50 years ago by and large, as it relates to flooding, as it relates to hurricanes. Yeah, the engineer up there says not so, but the statistics of what is happening says that it's absolutely true, at least in our community. But nevertheless, it's always worthy of a discussion. Yeah, everything.
I have a question. Those two restaurants you're talking about, beautiful places, glad we have them. Aren't they tied to a 20 or 25-year development agreement with, used to be Consolidated Tomoka, now CTO Realty, whatever? That's tied to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, that's pretty much it. I was just curious because I haven't really seen a lot of development to have a moratorium. So, thank you.
Well, I think when people are talking about a moratorium, they're not simply talking about that, the beach side, although they're really talking about it now after those storms.
Correct.
Because, you know, that's for another discussion. But Commissioner Henry?
So, over on Clyde Morris, a few years ago, we voted on a new development, Champions Quarters. And they had a big sign up for about a year that said, new homes from the 200s, inquire within, purchase your home. So I drive by yesterday and now they're for rent. And of course I'm livid because I'm thinking, how do we go from new homes for purchase, which helps solve the crisis that we're facing now with affordable housing, to now the greed of now these homes are going to be strictly for rent. It never came back to us. And I just want to know if that's going forward, if that's something that they can do. And if it is, I'm not going to support those types of things. I'm not going to support those coming into the community and under false pretenses that you're going to be selling homes. And then, you know, we know that if you rent the homes, you make more money. And so then all of a sudden, now we're back to these homes are now just for rent, which does not help our crisis that we're in right now. And I want to know how that happens. How is that
I'll let the legal
possible?
minds answer that. Bob?
Yeah, I'll be glad to look into it. The PD normally wouldn't address, sale versus rental. And,
Okay.
the owners would have a right to develop in either situation. But I'm not familiar with those particular facts. I'll be glad to look into it and report back to the commission in terms of their lawful uses.
But you do know that when you give a PD, you give a wide swath of control. And staff likes PDs. They like that because it's easier. And it's easier to get people to come to your community. And I don't begrudge staff when they like things. But what they like is not always what we want. And you have to always remember that when you're sitting up here. If you don't want certain things, even as it relates to PDs, you know, that changed since I've been up here. Wasn't always like that. And they might not like me saying that, but if you don't like it and you want to revisit it, you can always consider that. Because PDs, give them, they got a wide range of what they can do, which it always annoyed your predecessor. She just couldn't stomach not knowing what was going to happen, meaning Commissioner Traeger. Because with PDs, you give away a lot. And you have a right to revisit that. And it's not that I necessarily want to, because I appreciate where we are in a lot of ways. But when you want to scale back, you have to consider that. And I'm just saying that as the mayor and as one who has watched all of those things so that we know and then we can make decisions. Not saying that I favor one over the other, but it's something that you could always revisit. Okay, Commissioner Henry, any other?
That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Reed coming
Yes,
back.
sir. Coming back. I just neglected to mention that everyone's talking about the floods and the effects of the floods. I want to know, where are they now? So on next Monday evening, myself, along with the NAACP and the Daytona Beach Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, are hosting a neighborhood meeting where we're going to be asking the residents, you know, what the situation is, where are they living now, just what they're, you know, just a listening session on how things are going. We want to talk about, you know, the grants that we've had, how they've helped, and what have you. And that's Monday at Mount Bethel Baptist Church, the 23rd at 6 p.m.
Okay. Following up on that remark, in which I intend to be at Mount Bethel on that evening, despite the fact that I usually have a practice scheduled at that time. Mr. Manager, Mainland High School has 100 students who are homeless following the flood or the storms. I believe Campbell still has maybe 70 students. Most of the people on Caroline still in hotels. So we're trying to ascertain the exact number of people that are still in apartments and who don't show any signs of getting out of apartments. Because there's a lot of challenges behind being in apartments. Most of them are not even efficiencies. So what are they eating? How expensive is that? It's not a crisis that has gone away. Many people are continuing to have to live that crisis. So I look forward to being there, and I also look forward to getting the information and working with Food Brings Hope and others who are trying to sort of ameliorate some of the issues that those families are having, and do all that we can to expedite getting them out of apartments. So.
And I think what a lot of folks don't realize also, Mr. Mayor, is that although they may have vouchers, you still have to qualify to live into these other facilities. And if you don't qualify, it doesn't matter that you have a voucher.
And Commissioner Henry's point is interesting, although there's a balance between rentals and for sale that you always have to have. When we see apartments, we know we've got rentals. And you need that balance because those rentals, the newer rentals help create competition for the older rentals, which hopefully ultimately would help to bring your prices down. Doesn't seem to be happening because there just seems to be such a high demand here in our community. But you're on to something about the expectation that if you're building something that you think that it's for sale and then it's not. So those are things that I think we need to get more insight on how we might be able to regulate if we can. All right, any other comments?
I do. What
Yes,
was
ma'am.
that number you said?
What, 100 at Mainland and maybe 99, I think it was, and maybe 72 at Campbell. And then there's more people than that. I just heard those two numbers yesterday. We're trying to get an accurate number of the number of people who are in hotels and families. So, yeah, but it's a lot. Okay? No other comments? All right, my remarks are simply this. It's good to be a resident of Daytona Beach. At this time, Mr. Manager, do you have anything?
No comments.
Mr. Manager, you don't have an announcement because you've told everybody else. You're not going to tell your city? The manager has an announcement.
The announcement is that the announcement is the mayor has a basketball team that's playing the undefeated team that's coached by me.
The manager has told everyone in town. Everywhere I go, people are saying, "Oh, I'm coming to the game." What game? The game, your team versus the manager's team. I say, you mean the 9 and 10-year-olds?
All I know is that I'm very calm on the sidelines, and you are running down the sidelines.
That would be accurate.
We look forward to that 2:30 game at the Cherry Center.
Cherry Center. It's even in his update. It's everywhere. All right. Look. Who's team one? You. You're team one. Okay, as long as I'm team one. Okay. No, the manager has a big picture in the gym about as wide as this wall behind me. And I think that's home court advantage. That picture needs to come down. All right. Let's go. It's going to be good. And a part of this is I'm very happy that he's has his talents and is lending his voice to mentor and nurture our young men and coaches. I think it's important. I think it sends a great message to our kids that we care about what you're doing in your spare time, and we're going to deposit into you. So I appreciate that you're doing it. And we're looking forward to hopefully attracting other young folks to coach our kids in other sports as well as this one. All right.
Okay, our first speaker is Marjorie Johnson, and on deck is Grace Gillis.
Good evening, Commissioners and City Manager Mayor. Marjorie Johnson, 122 South Key Street. I would just like to say I thank all of you for naming that building there, Midtown Building, after Julia and Charles Cherry. I worked for the Daytona Times as an account executive. I wasn't able to make it there, but I appeared in the paper as an outstanding woman of America, leader of the Black community. And many times when I would go to vote, they made a magnificent contribution to this community. And they created jobs for residents of this community. And they left behind a legacy of caring and sharing and giving. And that's what we need. I'd just like to say tonight that I heard Commissioner Annette Henry praying tonight that you all would listen to your leaders and commissioner. I do agree with her on that. We have not had access to some of our officials here. We are not meeting with the residents. I put in a request with Bobby Yalkberg, my dear friend, to meet with the city manager. He has met with me at least 2 or 3 times since he's been here. No meetings from you, Mayor Henry. I launched your career with a special election. That's how you and your whole family got in office. Genesis always praised me for that because Patrick got to go to Washington, D.C., and that's why that statue of Miss Bethune is sitting there, here in the city of Daytona and there in Washington, D.C. So I'd like to say to you tonight, you should be listening to your constituents. We do not have that from Ms. Reed. She was supposed to meet with me 6 years ago and didn't show up. It's on YouTube if you're going to listen to it. Oh, I know how you felt when I didn't show up. Let's set up another meeting. 6 years ago, still no meeting. I'd like to say to you tonight that service is the price you pay for the space you occupy. When I was president of the NSBM occupied space, I didn't even get paid for it. And I got a lot of people their jobs back. And that was a good thing. So you're getting paid. At the last meeting, you made a statement, Mayor Hendry, that she's voting on something. That's part of her job. She's getting paid a salary. That is, every commissioner and mayor that was ever here voted on stuff. They get paid to do that. They also get paid to listen to their constituents and have meetings with them to address our issues. Our roads, our flooding over in Midtown is deplorable. Libby Coburn came here and cried to you people, and she lost everything in her house and came by my house crying. So I said, there's nothing you could do about it because she lived in that same house your brother used to live in. So let's pick it up. Let's service your commissioners, your constituents, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
for the record, Ms. Johnson did not help me get elected. Thank you.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Grace Gillis, and on deck is Frederick Brown.
Mayor Henry,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, my name is Grace Gillis, and I live at 623 Rainy Avenue, between North and Madison. My concern is the flooding on Madison Avenue. I've been living there ever since the mid-'70s, and it's only got worse and worse. We're not against any changes, progress of building like John Hall, the fire station came, and we appreciate it. And now we have over where Father Lopez School is, there's going to be development there. John Hall is on one end of my street. When it was built, because of codes, it had to go up. Nova Road, which is good improvement, expanding Nova Road, it's up. Now I have Father Lopez on this side, which is going to be development, and we are down, and we are flooding really, really bad. And I want to thank Commissioner Ken Strickland for taking my phone call and listening to me. And until others, he's been listening. And I just want to know what's going to be done about that flooding, because this has been going on for years. It's just not happening. It's getting worse and worse. Every time something is built, the flooding gets worse. On that corner, this time, the flooding was in Nova Road. One on the east side of Nova Road, that lane was flooded. I have pictures of the flood waters, and it's awful. I mean, there are people, and I'm glad, Ms. Reed, I'm going to see if we get some people come to your meeting. They're still out of their homes. FEMA gave them money, but it wasn't enough to repair their homes. There are people who took out loans to improve their homes, but they can't get the loan because they have to have insurance, and you can't get insurance. You have a leaky roof, and your house has been flooded. And a lot of these people over here are on fixed income, and they're elderly. And they really need help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Frederick Brown, and on deck is John Nicholson.
That's an area that I didn't know flooded like that. No, that I didn't know.
Frederick Brown, 1508 Crescent Ridge. Having only 3 minutes, I wanted a preference with the PSA, public service announcement. A veteran from Daytona Beach was killed in action on January 21st, 1968, in the Khe Sanh siege. We will be, my group, the Vietnam Veterans 1048, will be doing a service to honor him. It's at the Cedar Hill Cemetery, 1400 hours, 2 p.m. for civilians. I'd like to invite the public to come and help honor him. He laid in the ground for 55 years without a headstone. We now have a headstone for him. Took quite a while to find him, find his grave. And as we say in the military, all gave some, he gave all for this community. So again, I'd like to invite people. That said, to follow up to previous comments, flooding is a problem here. And yes, I want to see Embry-Riddle expand. It's a great university. My wife's uncle is alumni from there. And it's great what they're doing. And I saw the dollar signs running. And I saw the mayor say talking about new development is better than old development. The only thing I was squinching my face about was new development done properly is better. Those are the words that need to be put in. Okay. It's not just about getting the highest paid lawyers to be able to say, well, it meets the requirements, so we're good. Let's just get that in. That's not what it's about. It's about what's best for the community. That whole area needs to be we need to sit down. We need to talk about the problems of flooding because that area is key. Okay? And we need to talk about what's good for the university, what's good for the city, what's good for the citizens of Midtown who are being driven out. Now, I've spoken several times before that we can't just put 20 foot of fill dirt on the entire city and then build it over. That's just, it's not going to happen. So we have to look at, and as I pointed out, you know, I'm not crazy about this. There are people who have done this over the last 800 years. There are answers to this problem. And part of the answer has to do with that property dispute. So again, I'm very much in favor of the university, but let's do it right. There's a patchwork of properties in there, and that needs to be straightened out. And the drainage issues, as we've pointed out, the survey that we spent $361,000 for, only the parts of that were done that benefited the mayor at that time who owned all the car dealerships. And as I pointed out, in the middle of the flood, none of them flooded. The rest of the damage that was done to the citizens was done because it wasn't completed, and that the thought was, well, we're just going to wait till we get federal approval. That's the wrong approach. We need to be proactive, not reactive. And I pledge my help and assistance to any of you in helping sort this out.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Patricia Hurd.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. Stacy, with answer to your question on development on the beach side, 1970, the Horizon was built. 1980s, the Marriott was built. 1990s, Mediterranean was built. 2000, Ocean Walk, that whole complex was built. 10 years later, the Island Crown. 10 years later, the Hotel Grand from the Russians. At that point, we've been doing 10-year periods, except when Anderson built his 4 buildings. Right now, we're going through growth. None of those buildings were damaged by the hurricane. Not one of them. All right? The Hilton, Marriott, whatever you want to call it, was flooded 4 years ago when a really extreme wave came over the top, flooded their ground floor. All right? The Plaza, which is 100 years old, did substantial damage this time. All right? We don't have a problem with the flooding on the beach side. Our seawalls were damaged because the water came over the top and damaged them. So there really isn't a need for a moratorium on the beach side. If you want things, just add it. If you want extra security, add it. But those buildings go way down into bedrock, as the mayor had mentioned. We do not have a problem. We cannot afford not to build. We tore down 17 hotels. We replaced one of them. That's not enough. We need the tourist industry. Secondly, with the redistricting, sorry about it, I thought you guys were going to vote tonight. It is horrible. The numbers that he did, the directions, what we did 50 years ago doesn't hold weight. And he said, well, we have to continue it because we don't want to change it and disrupt the residents. So we're going to keep a 50-year-old concept because we don't want to change it. We have, yep. He doesn't, we had to keep the lines basically the same because we don't want to upset the residents. We can't do that. 50 years is 50, things have changed in 50 years, all right? He did in the future, we will look at future growth. I don't know if he knew that Avalon Park was going to go in there. 10 years ago, when we did the redistricting, there was a complex, apartment complex going in off Williamson and Bevel. The month after we did it 10 years ago, we were out of compliance because people moved into the apartment complex. All the development on one of these is in Stacy's district. She gets everything west of 95. That's where all the growth is. There's no growth, basically, for the rest of you guys. So look at this very carefully on what's going to happen in the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is
95 you've got.
Patricia Hurd, and on deck is William Bitter.
That's absolutely false.
Good evening, everybody. 822 Pat Hurd, 822 Vernon Street. I'm going to speak on several things. MLK Day activities were great. MLK Boulevard. I spoke on this before. That's the street is the worst I've seen in my traveling, and I do quite a bit of traveling. It doesn't represent Dr. King. I keep talking about it, but nothing is being done, Commissioner. Help me. Number 2, speeding on MLK Boulevard and going around the double yellow lines. The other day, a car went around me just north of Cedar Street, and then the same car went around other cars between El Dorado and International Boulevard. Today, a green gold Lexus went around me at Wells Lane and MLK. Stopped at the traffic light, no cars coming south at the light. Therefore, he went around in the intersection and kept going. The area known as Newtown, you know, I'm from the old school. I'm an old lady. I am. The area known as Newtown is not being taken care of by the commissioner and people in that zone. I look at the area from Shady Place to Magnolia as the area where our Black educators lived. Mrs. Bonner, Principal Bonner, Mrs. Prune, her husband was a realtor, but she was a teacher. Mrs. Fulworth, who sung every Easter morning over there. Mr. Hill, the band director, Mr. Long, Mrs. Keys, and Commissioners Moores. Coach Bunky Matthews, Charles Cherry, Mr. Huger. That area is known to me as the area whereby they came back and developed. In the same neighborhood, it is a disgrace to go down Cedar Street and see an old school bus parked on the property of Principal Bonner and her sister, Mrs. Thompson. Why are there 18-wheelers and RVs parked in the neighborhood? And nothing is being done to remove them. South Carolina Street, Vernon South Street, Bellevue, and all around. RVs, people sleeping in them or whatever. They just come into the neighborhood just doing whatever they want to do, and don't look at me like that, and nothing is being done.
I'm looking at you like, really? Miss Hurd, what was the name of Bonner Elementary before Miss Bonner?
Cypress Street. I went there from 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and then I went to Mount Betha Annex. You know, in the little apartments, you remember? In the little apartments. I was in the 6th grade when Emmett Till was killed.
1955.
And what else do you want to know?
That's good. I wanted to know that. Cypress Street. Okay. Thank you.
But I wish something would be done about MLK.
These sound like code enforcement, some of it.
Well, maybe I need you to speak to code
Ma'am?
enforcement.
Okay.
And
We got you. Your time is up. Chief is listening. He's listening.
Our next speaker is William Biddorf, and on deck is Denise D'Abato.
I live at 402 East International Speedway Boulevard. I'm just a proud resident of Daytona Beach, and I'm proud to be here in front of you. I came out today, there was two reasons why I'm here. One, I know we're already working towards great things on East ISB because I've been in between bothering the poor city manager every 5 minutes.
That's right.
I went to this place called the Golden Magnolia Marine Resort. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Well, if I could pass this on to her, I only had two of them. You can pass it to the mayor. I was discussing it. I wanted to bring it up. I went there for a business meeting with some developers that I'm trying to bring into Daytona. And I talked to the lady that is fixing it up and making it a nice center there. She's doing something really positive. It's very historic. The problem that she's having right now is she has a problem with the parking. She needs some help from the city to where she can get maybe some kind of variance for 6 parking spots to be able to be, I don't know what it is, Mr. Manager.
I know she's actually, Mr. Stallworth has been trying to work with them on parking on some of our properties.
Thank you. And it just came up to play because I was part of the citizens group where I'm going out there, and I talked to Mr. Morris yesterday, and I noticed how such a good job he did with saving the Peabody. So when I went over to this older place and the lady was telling me everything, I said, well, why haven't you come in front of the commission or in front of my mayor? Because, of course, you've taught me a lot. That's part of the reason why I'm doing the citizens course, so I can understand more about the city. But if there's anything we can do to help this lady save her place with that parking, she only needs 6 spots. And the city has a parking lot right across the street. So I think it would be good. As for me, I more or less showed up for her. I know that probably in February I'll be meeting with you all on some development stuff on East ISB. I appreciate you all and thank you all for your dedication. I think a lot of times as citizens, we come here in front of you and we don't quite appreciate how much time that each one of you put in here. And here and other places, like I go to the cities, the citizens meetings there with Monica Paris, and I got to learn with, the city commissioners and different things about what goes on in our city, how much you've all saved the Peabody throughout the years. Because I remember years ago, I went there, the ceiling was leaking and it was in misrepair, and throughout the years, the city saved that. So hopefully there's some kind of way we can save this little place. I appreciate you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Likewise.
So let me just take a moment to address that. I actually was running with a friend of mine a few weeks back, and I ran by there, and I looked disheveled. I looked like a runner. So I went in and I met with her. I came back a little bit later on. I spoke with her. She explained the situation to me. About a week and a half later, I emailed the city manager and asked that Mr. Thomas in redevelopment be allowed to have tea with me and meet her personally at her place of business. We went ahead and did that. Came to find out that they have been working with Mr. Brown, with Mr. Stallworth, with the marina. So they're actively working toward a resolution. But this has been in the works now for a few months. And then again, we just had a meeting, I want to say last week. Topic of conversation came up one more time. So the city is definitely on it. But I appreciate you going out and meeting people. I think that's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Denise D'Abato, and on deck is Ann Ruby. Denise.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Denise D'Abato from 611 Braddock, and I'm here tonight representing Beachside Neighborhood Watch, and would like to request your generous contribution of allotted Bike Week funds in support of our biannual barbecue, which feeds numerous law enforcement, municipal workers, and traffic control personnel. The barbecue has been a tradition for many years and is organized and staffed 100% by volunteers of the Beachside Neighborhood Watch, with help from the Our Lady of Lourdes Veterans Group. We rely solely on the donations of local businesses, B&W members, and city government to purchase the needed supplies for this event. Recently, we have experienced increases in expenses due to the changing times. Your endowment of any amount would be greatly appreciated. We would also welcome you to donate an hour or more of your time as a volunteer so that you can participate in this rewarding experience. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Strickland, for your donation.
What's your budget?
It was $250 a day. We feed about 125 on Fridays and Saturdays. We feed the fire department on Saturdays during Bike Week, and we feed 45 beach patrol during Bike Week on Saturdays. But we average over 100 meals, and we go up to 150. That's all law enforcement, municipal workers that are doing traffic. Any law enforcement that shows up on Harvey Street, we feed, because they have nowhere to go during Bike Week. So we feed them in the parking lot. We set up grills. But it's usually over 100. We went from $250 a day. We're up around $400.
400 a day, and for how many days?
We do 6 days a year. Bike Week, 2 Bike Weeks, October, and we do.
4 during Bike Week and 2 during Biketoberfest.
Ken, what was your contribution?
Yeah, I'll do 250.
Thank you.
I'll match Ken.
I'm sorry.
I'll match
Ken?
Commissioner Strickland 500.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll do 250 out of my bike fund, and I'll volunteer like I usually do.
We would love to have you. Thank you.
I don't have any bike funds, but I'll be there volunteering.
Okay.
Since my colleague doesn't have bike funds, I'll do 250, and I'll do 250 on her behalf.
Thank
Make
you.
it
Oh, thank you very much.
So 500, okay.
Appreciate it.
Tish, will we bring those back for next meeting? Is that the
Preferably
plan?
one day I'll be
We
able
can
to
do it
volunteer.
next meeting. It's time.
It's not today. Okay, I don't know how much was that, how much y'all needed, 25? What did we
This-
get to?
$1,500 that you guys did. And then Ken did, so that's 2,000.
Okay.
And they needed how much? How much more? I'll do 500.
So you're gonna do 500 instead of 250?
Yeah, I guess.
We have right now $1,000 in our account.
Oh.
We always like to be a year ahead.
Oh, well, catch me next year.
During every Bike Week, trying to
Catch me next year.
You guys doing a great job. You're doing a great job. You guys are some of the greatest citizens that we have. And I know you don't like praise, but you guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is Pierre Lewis.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I do have to give particular shout out to Ted and to Denise as the linchpins that keep B&W running. They do all the work behind the scenes, so it's an honor to be on the board with them. I wanted to talk about the development on the beach side. First of all, a minor correction. When the Land Shark project came forward, citizens were very angry. Not because of the restaurants, because of the 285-foot long-term high-rise with a myriad of uses. So people were very angry about that PD because it was divided into the 5-year plan with the restaurants and the long-term plan. I'll get the reference and send you the link to the video. But yeah, people were upset. So I think we need to think of this development on the beach side. Think of it from the beach. Our beach is one of our biggest economic engines. And if you step on the other side of the seawall onto the sand, which everybody goes, hey, that's county, not us. But the city policy for what we do east of A1A, between A1A and the beach, will affect how the beach survives, how it thrives. And I think we have to look at it from that perspective. It's not just about the foundations, how deep the footings go, whether the buildings stand up. It's whether there's any reason people want to come and stay in those buildings. We don't really know how seawalls, no matter how magnificently they're built, will affect the beach. You put a magnificent seawall here,
and over here there's not good seawalls, we don't know what happens to the rest of the beach. We have to have a stop and think policy about this. And just saying no to a moratorium isn't going to do that. We need to be considerate of this. I did a visual scan. There are 30 vacant parcels east of A1A in Daytona Beach in our boundaries. 6 are residential, 24 are commercial, and of those 24, they're bundled into 14 different locations. So we should be coming up with a directive for staff on how we want to have those things handled. One of the things I've done is collect postcards of Daytona Beach, because I didn't grow up here. I don't know what it looked like. So I go to historic postcard shows and buy postcards. And what's amazing to me is how the seawalls weren't there before in the old hotels. It was just big rocks, went right down to the sand. I wonder if that survives better. But I think we should take a very, very considered approach to this and not just say no to a moratorium, but give clear guidance to staff. Thank you.
No, I wouldn't doubt wondering that either.
Our next speaker is Pierre Lewis, and on deck is Jenny Nazak.
Evening to the mayor, commissioners of the city, Pierre Lewis, 130 South Franklin Street. Yeah, I'm actually speaking to you tonight on a few things, but number one is a friend that's in the area. What I call it Mid-Tona, which is like Middle Daytona instead of just being Midtown. She mentioned that she sent an email concerning the lighting on Cottle Circle and Lockhart. She sent it to the mayor. She sent it to your office. Sent it to the commissioner. Sent it to the city manager, and she'd like to know. She said because you've got it. I responded. Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner. She's just saying on her text that she hasn't got any response.
What's her name?
On this. Miss Rennell, Destiny Rennell.
No, I responded also.
Okay, well, that's
I
taken care of.
responded
Okay.
on Facebook and I responded on email.
Okay, got it, because I got her information that's, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got information this year. I told her I would mention it tonight on her behalf, but since you already answered. The other part is, I was glad to see they've got the new meeting about the flooding, because that was one of my points that was here. I also, because I was going to talk about that, but we've kind of belabored that point a little bit. The other thing is, I happened to got a chance to see the Esplanade that's out there, and you're right, I saw the pictures. That place is gorgeous. Kudos to Mr. Brown, whoever set that up. I understand they put 15 million or 30 million or something in that area investment, which makes that place look fantastic. It really is. And then the other part is going down into One Daytona, another place where people had a wedding that's over there. My friends had a wedding that's there. I had the opportunity to go over there. The reason I bring those up is because I understand it was 40-some million that went there, 15 million or 30 million that went on the Esplanade. But then I remember 32. Thank you. But then I remember a piece of paper when I was on the Midtown board which said about $50 million was done in the Midtown area. So I think to myself, if that buys 32 million buys that on the Esplanade, and 40 million, that's what it buys there, and then only 50 million was put in the Midtown, we've got to have a different strategy for how that money is spent. And I realize it's probably different pots of money, how it's done in that area. My point is what I'm saying is that, and I always say mid-Daytona instead of just Midtown, because the middle of Daytona is a little bit different. And that's where a lot of flooding is. And I would say that my point is that the same sort of structures as they build, as they have on Beach Street, as they have on One Daytona, in the middle of Daytona, we'd like for that area to be that sophisticated too. We like those type of restaurants where people are coming there, that lighting that's there. It's like in one area, it's 2023 and beyond, and in another area, it's still 1963. So somehow or another, in the middle of Daytona, it needs to have some newer development. I know we had the thing with the framework group that was there. Well, the 3 census tracts, 819, 820, and 821, they all have very similar demographics on those same census tracts. And I know that's where the opportunity zone is at, that's in there where that building was built right there, but it's the same census tract numbers. So somehow or another, they got the money for that area, but we didn't get the money for the middle of Daytona. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jenny Nazak, and on deck is Vernon Weatherholtz.
Hi, everybody. Jenny Nazak, 501 Harvey. So I'm feeling a little bad about something. A little while back, I was part of a citizens initiative to get rid of those little bottles of water, Daytona water. And the purpose wasn't to stop Daytona Beach from making money off of water, it was to stop all the plastic bottles. And we have all these plastic bottles, and it just, it's so sad. I mean, yeah, I'm admittedly moving into geriatric age group, so I can remember an ancient time when there were these archaic vessels that we used to drink out of that were reusable. And Daytona Beach is actually known for the quality of its water. So what happened? I don't know. But I think there was supposed to be a water fountain or something installed so people could use it. So I wonder if...
You're right, there was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So if you guys need me to do some research or find out what happened with that, I'll be happy to.
We have some.
Oh, okay. Yay. Because it's like, wait.
So you want us to stop drinking out of these things?
But I don't want people to be dehydrated, and I don't want people to deprive themselves. Like if someone's working really hard and you got to have your water, I don't want anyone dehydrated. But our water is delicious.
It is.
And these corporate water bottlers, they pay a pittance to pump out the aquifers and then put it in these plastic bottles, which unfortunately here really don't get recycled. Actually, they mostly, in most places, don't get recycled. It's sad. It's really sad. But anyway, yay tap water. Yay reusable cups. Also, everybody deserves their own beautiful, classy, reusable. Oh, look, it's a reusable drinking vessel. Yeah. Okay, second topic, floods. Ah, yes, flooding, big problem. So flood control, every square inch of our city, the good news is every square inch of our city can play a role in flood control through having the ground be very spongy and absorbent, through having trees and other vegetations pumping up that water constantly 24/7. And on that subject, there is a tree giveaway. Friday and Saturday, Volusia County is having a native tree giveaway. There's 5 locations in the county. The one closest to us is out at Tiger Bay State Forest, I think it's 4316 West International Speedway. 2 trees to a household, and they're offering several types of trees. And it's from, I think it's like noon to 3 on Friday and like 9 to 12 on Saturday. It's coming up, and I've posted it on Facebook. So yay, everybody get your trees. Those things are stormwater pumps, and they're very beautiful, and they mitigate the heat as well. Thank you all very much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next, oops. Our next speaker is Vernon Weatherholtz.
They look sharp.
My name's Vern Weatherholtz. I live at 3 Granville Circle, Daytona Beach. I have a couple things. First of all, it's kind of hard to go behind Jenny. She has a lot of good thoughts.
She does.
The rezoning. I looked at I've been thinking about this, and the 2 maps that we have out there, I'll be truthful, I'm really not crazy about it. You know, you have the problem, all the growth here in the city is going to the west side. Just the one property alone, you know, they went from 10,000, I think, to 8,000. And if I believe, and I could be stand corrected on this, I think that there's a certain amount of those are already have permits on approximately 2,000 homes when he bought the permits. So you have to keep that into consideration. You know, let's just say that those few houses that are permitted, you know, and let's just say 2 people per house. You know, that's a substantial amount of, you know, of population. And I think that it says that you should have the zones fairly amounted in population. But in a growing community like we have, and we've seen, and we know it's going to be, I think that the commission has to put that into consideration. And, you know, it could easily be done, I believe. I think it's your option to use that. The census You know, I think that I've heard here in the commission say that in 5 years, going to 80,000. I think it very easily, the way it's grown and they're building over on the west side, it could be 100,000. And that would kind of be, I won't say a mistake, but I think it would be an overlooked site if you don't put that into consideration when you do the zoning. Now, as far as, I'll leave that go, and now beachside. With the development along on the east side of A1A. I've known over the years, I've lived here 11 years, and I think Daytona Beach has got the cheapest property any place in the world. I'm not talking about the United States, I'm talking about the world. We have a great beach, great place to live, and I think people are realizing it, and they're coming to the beach. I walk about 8 to 10 miles from where I walk on the beach. I live on beachside. And it's devastating of what the storms have done to the beach. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And I think that we need to put consideration on that. Of course, the federal government's going to be the one that decides. Thank you.
That was my final speaker for this evening.
Well, this has been a great meeting. And a lot has been covered.
Mayor, can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
On that redistricting, they did put that in consideration with the growth that's already been approved. Am I correct on that? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, let's say goodnight. Let's continue to do all that we can to be great. Go Warriors.